Connor McReynolds, and welcome to The Dinner Party. In this podcast, I ask guests to tell me about their dream dinner parties. I want to know the venue, the menu, and the guest list. What better way to dig a bit deeper into my guests' creativity and passion than by talking to them about the people, places, and food that inspire them most? This week, I am delighted to be speaking to a brilliant improviser, illustrator, singer, presenter, and astrophysicist. She appears in several Jericho Comedy shows, including An Improvised Funeral, The Show That Must Not Be Named, and Murder on the National Express. I am so excited right now to be speaking to the fantastic Dr. Josie Peters. Josie Peters, thank you so much for joining me on The Dinner Party. How are you this evening?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have dinner.
I'm so excited that you're here. Obviously, Josie, you are involved in so many really cool things. You're a comedian and an artist and a singer and an astrophysicist, which is... I don't speak to many astrophysicists in my day-to-day life, Josie, so this is a real thrill for me.
That's great. Well, I'll bring more of them next time.
Are you all in a club together?
Yeah. We call ourselves like the constellations. And,
That really does sound like an actual Oxford thing, doesn't it? Like the constellations. It really does sound
I feel like it should exist.
I think you may have just created a group.
Yeah, this is the beginning of new exciting...
Well, I'm definitely not allowed in because I was reading all about kind of you and your work today and your fascinating dinner party guest that we're going to talk about later. And I literally laughed out loud at a point earlier when I was reading like your profile, I think on the University of Oxford website, and it was sort of explaining what your work was. And like, I know it was written in English, like I recognized the language, but I understood nothing. It was so strange. Like, what you do is so incredible and so quite literally out of this world and astonishing to me. Like, where did your interest in astrophysics begin?
So I was actually did a maths undergraduate degree, and everyone else was like, oh, I want to be a teacher, I want to go into finance, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And none of that really ticked any of my boxes. So I sort of spent a summer kind of wafting around. And then I went back home up north, and then I came back down to London for an improv comedy thing. And while I was there, I went to a photography exhibit at the Royal Maritime Museum in Greenwich.
Oh, yeah.
And it was basically you started at the Earth and the Moon and all the planets, and then you kind of basically like zoomed out in terms of space as you went through. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing was that not only were all these images really beautiful, but they had these little bios from astronomers going, oh, I like this galaxy because it's got a lot of stars in it. And it was at that point I realized that you could just do astrophysics. You didn't have to do all of physics. Like, I never really got materials or acoustics or the slightly drier stuff. I'm sure it is very interesting but at school I was like, space is cool, but the rest of physics is boring. So when I found this out, it was like, oh my gosh, great. And I basically, I worked for a year saving up the money to go and do my master's in Manchester, and then applied to like 8 PhD programs, and somehow Oxford took me. So
wow,
that was how I ended up here.
So your astrophysics PhD just came out of seeing a really cool exhibition.
Yeah, and I think, I always kind of value trying to explain science because I hate that it can be impenetrable. So like my bio that you read is more kind of aimed at a fellow astronomer.
Yes, of course.
So it's kind of packed full of all the jargon. But
well, yeah, it's another really cool thing about your work that I've obviously known you for a little while, and I've seen a lot of your stuff kind of online. But it's a really cool strand of your work that you make science kind of really exciting and accessible. Like you do a lot of stuff on social media, you know, on YouTube and stuff. You release videos. Tell us a bit more about kind of some of the ways in which you make science really accessible.
So I've for the past year I've focused more of my efforts on TikTok,
Oh
um,
yeah,
because I really like making YouTube videos, but they're a lot of work, especially when you're doing normal work as well.
yeah,
It's a lot of editing, and you know you need to do a lot of visuals and things like that. Whereas with TikTok, it's a lot faster, and I can sort of do voiceovers for things and make them that even bit more accessible because they're so quick. Like, you know, even
yeah,
someone who doesn't like science could go, oh, that galaxy looks nice, and, you know, watch a 60-second thing of my TikTok and then go, oh, actually, I understood that. That made sense.
yeah.
And then maybe they'll, you know, come and find out about some more science and physics stuff. Um, so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of that
Do you get like much
lately.
engagement from people online? Like a lot of people kind of getting in touch to say that you've helped them understand something, or that they've kind of taken up your interest in it based on sort of seeing your stuff.
So something that I've got recently that I haven't had much before was um, some parents tell me that they show their daughters my videos
Oh
on TikTok,
wow,
which was really lovely because obviously you're trying to, you know, it'd be great to get more women in science because there's
yeah.
not enough. Um, so that's been really lovely. Yeah, I get a whole kind of weird pick and mix bag of different feedback. Some of them's kind of weird, but I guess that's true for everyone. Um, so yeah, I do get some nice bits of feedback, and I had something recently as well where I did a very tiny, like, you know, like 1 minute um, thing on the sky at night a few months ago,
Hmm.
and a colleague sort of had her child on Zoom and was like, "Look, it's Josie. She was there."
Ah,
Um,
that's lovely.
so yeah, that's not something that I expected because I always feel like I'm kind of aiming. I don't know. I feel like I'm usually aiming at people that are sort of young adult kind of age.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
it's nice to know that they're engaged too, so that's good.
Absolutely, it's really really cool. I mean, just obviously you're I've mentioned already you have so many kind of varied interests, you know, aside from your academic work in astrophysics, you are also an artist and a comedian. Do you ever look to kind of bring your sort of your love of science and that aim of making science really accessible, do you ever kind of take a comedic approach to it, or think of a project where you can bring together kind of comedy and science?
I think I try and bring my comedy personality,
Yeah.
if there is such a thing, um, to uh, to the things that I do, and remember to be light-hearted and fun about it because then I enjoy making it more as well. Um,
Yeah.
I haven't had many specific things. I did do a women in science sort of comedy night with Jericho Comedy. Gosh,
Yeah.
when was that? That must have been January or December. I think it was
Yeah.
December last year.
My initial
Um,
instinct was to say I think that was 8 years ago, but actually, yeah, I think it was just before lockdown. Yeah, like a couple of months before.
so yeah, that was fun trying to marry it. It was more kind of like the realities of what it is like to be a kind of, I don't know, an astrophysicist, and the funny things and people that you
Yeah.
encounter.
And was that your first kind of venture into stand-up comedy?
I did do a Bright Club a couple of years before
Oh yeah.
that. So that was my first ever thing
Bright Club,
because
for people who don't know, that's like a kind of, it's sort of TED Talk-ish, like TED Talk meets comedy. It's funny, it's interesting. It's usually academics or professionals like talking about their area. Um Sorry to interrupt. I just in case
oh
anyone
no,
didn't know
yeah.
what Bright Club was. What did you talk about at Bright Club?
I think I talked about like popular misconceptions in astronomy. So there's kind of like a whole like astrology, crossover where you get. There was a really funny clip from like the Australian Bachelor that came out like a few months ago, where there was
Okay.
this astrophysicist who was like, "Oh, hi, yeah, I'm an astrophysicist," and the girl goes, "Oh, great, I'm a Leo." And you're like, no.
Oh man.
Uh,
And so you've had a kind of couple of experiences with stand up. Obviously, so much of your kind of comedy background is in improv. Um, how did you feel about stand up? You've done it a couple of times now. Is that something we can kind of steal you not away from improv, but do you think you want to join the stand up club, or is your
it was,
heart so firmly with improv that there's no room for stand up?
I love the spontaneity of improv so
Yeah.
much. Although obviously it's great to have the limelight all to yourself for 10 minutes. Let's not pretend. That
Not
was really
enough
nice.
people are honest enough to say that, yeah, it's a real fucking thrill to be the center of attention.
Yeah, so that was great. I think it was really interesting trying it out because I figured I was kind of learning what maybe style of stand-up, if I did more of it, I would like to do, and maybe more like character-based comedy, I think, because
Oh,
I worried that
yeah.
I was a little bit mean in my most recent one.
That's interesting. Mean
So and yeah,
how?
like so one of my bits in my recent piece, I guess,
Yeah.
was about how, like, you go to a party and then someone goes, "Oh, great, like, but Bob does science too, you should talk to Bob, let's bring him over." And you're like, no, the reason I came to the party was to get away from people like Bob.
Oh, I think that's only mean if Bob is there and looking forward to seeing you. But what are the chances?
True.
Oh man. And
uh,
so you mentioned how much you love the kind of the spontaneity of improv. And you start, am I right in saying that your kind of first comedy experience was in improv with the Oxford Imps?
Almost. I first got into improv a couple of years before,
Ah.
when I was doing my undergraduate still. And basically, I was doing a maths degree, and the societies at my uni weren't that great.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a few. I had never sung in public before, so I was taking some singing lessons, and I was also doing some like refresher acting stuff. And
Hmm.
it turned out that there was an improv class going on straight after the acting one, and they didn't have enough people. So the teacher was like, "Look, you can just stay because it will help the class, and you're already here anyway for the class that you paid for."
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did that for about 8 weeks, and then at the end of it, the lead guy kind of ushered me over, and he was like, "Hey, we think you're." He didn't speak like that at all. "Hey, you lady, you're pretty good."
I love this character. That's really
um,
interesting.
so yeah, I did improv with them for a bit, but it was kind of less intense. We did it once a month, and whereas the imps, go to Edinburgh every year, and
Yeah.
have really fantastic alumni, and are very serious about doing improv to a really high standard. Not
Of
that it
course,
wasn't a
yeah.
good standard before, but it was just, this is just like the imps are weekly, and
Sure.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sort of maybe take it a bit more seriously. And I guess if there is that, as you say, kind of Edinburgh element, you're doing it for a paying audience and that kind of thing, you have to think more about quality than perhaps you do if you're just doing it for fun. Do you think, is that fair to say? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
Yeah, no, I think so, and sort of that regularity of turning up each week, and you've all got matching T-shirts, and um, and yeah, getting booked for gigs for various people as well, and then and then
Yeah.
inevitably the other things happen, like um, the Harry Potter stuff that we do, and
Well, yeah,
improvised funeral
that's
and things.
that's one thing. Obviously, with lovely Jericho Comedy, who produced this podcast, you're a big part of our kind of improv output. You're involved with An Improvised Funeral, which is quite literally what the name suggests. The Harry Potter theme
More
show, the
fun
show
than
that
it
must not be named.
sounds.
Putting the fun in funeral. But tell us, like, what's the... Because obviously it's very different doing a kind of longer form piece of improv, like over the course of an hour, you're telling one story, whereas like maybe a lot of what the imps do is kind of shorter form, like a few games, and it sort of switches it up, gives different people different things to do. But in that kind of longer form improv, like there's so many different skills at play there. There is, I mean, you're acting, you're writing, you're pacing the story, you're taking on board like audience suggestions and everything. It's such an incredible and envious or enviable skill set. But yeah, like how different are those things to someone like me who can barely improvise, as this interview is clearly demonstrating? Uh, yeah, what's the kind of difference between that shorter form, those sort of games that you play, and the longer form storytelling improv? Like, I'm assuming you approach them differently.
Yeah, you kind of, when you're doing the short form stuff, you can be very free and very silly because there's no consequence. You know,
Yeah.
you're doing a very short game and you can say a ridiculous punchline, and there's a great amount of fun that you can have in that, and it's a very quick payoff, and you get very big laughs very quickly. Um, and yeah, and as I say, it allows you to be more silly to begin with. Whereas if you start a long form improv totally absurd, then you're kind of derailing the whole story. So you do have to, as you say, approach it quite differently. And there are some different aspects to it that can make the payoff so much better. Like if you, I remember this was actually a long form. I think I had with the imps. Like there was a scene where I think I was a teacher for some art student, and then
Mm-hmm.
the student went on his journey, and then sort of I came in at the end and like sort of helped tie the story together, and sort of the payoff of being like, that was narratively so satisfying. And just kind of that you have to hold back and not like jump into the scenes all the time because you're wanting to make the story good.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, it's even more fun getting to do that within the Harry Potter universe, and exploring what Dementors do on the tea breaks and what the goblins are up to, and the house elves in the kitchens. It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
definitely.
lot of fun.
We obviously had the pleasure of improvising ish together. This is sort of a different kind of show again. I think we were involved with Murder on the National Express for Jericho Comedy, an improvised murder mystery set on board a moving coach. Obviously, though, there are points in that story that we know we have to hit because it is the same story each time, but we're surrounded on all sides by an audience of people asking our characters questions. And that's quite a different thing again. It's sort of halfway between a play, I guess, and improv. Um, but yeah, like how different an experience is that again from sort of completely making up the story for a long form show?
And I've really enjoyed it a lot. I think that a lot of the weight is taken off you in a way because you know what the plot is and you know
Yeah.
when you have to come in and speak, and so that's really nice. And I think another really fun thing was, we started doing the shows, and then the more shows we did, I think you could sort of explore your character a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, as you say, even though there's that sort of semi-scriptedness in that, like we know who the murderer is and we know what who's got what evidence and whatever else,
Yeah.
but yeah, having that freedom to kind of be like, oh, maybe I'll play the character slightly differently this time, or
Yeah.
they'll have this kind of tick. So it's kind of fun to,
Yeah,
I really enjoyed
definitely.
having that mix of boundaries and not boundaries.
Yes, I totally get that. Yeah. I mean, you're involved with so many kind of really cool things, but obviously the last 7 months you've not really had the opportunity to go out and improvise in the same way as you usually do. Like, How much are you missing that, and kind of how are you filling the void at the moment without improv?
Yeah, I was missing it a lot and didn't really realize how much, I think, for maybe a couple of months, because there was still sort of the whole like, oh, isn't this weird? And now we know that we're in it for a bit longer. Um, but so I started a little bit just by going to sort of a group Zoom singing class, which is
Ah.
as bizarre as it sounds because we're all on mute.
What?
You,
That's not what I
yeah,
would expect from a singing class. Like, sing, but I don't want to hear it.
yeah. Well, you can just imagine the level of feedback. You only need one person, right, who's got who's not wearing a headset for it to all go
Of
wrong.
course, yeah.
Um, so it was really funny actually because it was with the same company that I did my original singing lessons with back during my undergrad degree,
Ah,
and
okay.
it was kind of odd because it was almost like exactly the same, because when you're in your group you can, there was maybe one lesson out of the 5-6 weeks or whatever that you would hear each person sing, but when you're singing in a group you mostly can't hear everyone else
Sure.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So but it was really nice to have like a rhythm of like, let's warm your voices up again, and it was all musical theatre, so it was fun to perform.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been doing a bit of that, and then I um on weekends started getting my partner to film me doing weird characters for Instagram.
What?
I've since released someone called Jardinier Jardin into the world, who has a little gardening show on my Instagram. So yeah, I've been playing with that a bit, as a way to sort of still get some sort of performance in, and
Yeah.
trying not to be too precious about it, because although the internet is kind of permanent, it also kind of doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
yeah, not being afraid to like just put silly songs or whatever it is on there, just to encourage that sense of play again.
That's very cool. That sounds really, really fun. I mean, I one thing I love and one thing I feel really, really lucky for is like with these podcasts, the Jericho Comedy podcast, which I do for Jericho, and also this, the Dinner Party. I get to speak to brilliant creative people like you, people whose creativity is so like multifaceted, and obviously your interests and experience are so varied and interesting. Like from astrophysics to art and comedy and music, podcasting, all these really cool things. Um, like one thing I really like to talk about as well is kind of authenticity, and it's sort of something that particularly comes up with stand-ups, like because you're writing and performing stuff that in theory you really care about and that it's important to you. That's why you're talking about it in the first place. Do you feel that with your like all your kind of creative outlets that you can be really authentically yourself, and like can you bring aspects of kind of one area of interest and another kind of together in interesting ways? Um, yeah, like I guess what I'm asking is kind of how do all of those various interests kind of merge together, and what for you feels like the most authentically Josie Peters kind of creative project that you have?
So I think this is almost something that is going to emerge from the ether, as as it's kind of one of these things that I have kind of been keeping them all quite separate up until now.
Hmm.
Um, and I think authenticity is really important. And I think people are starting to realize that more now, as like people are getting kind of fed up of airbrushed Instagram people and things like
Mm.
that. That it's kind of becoming more of a I don't know, a general consciousness, is hippyish as that
No,
sounds.
I get it. I
Um,
get that. Yeah.
but yeah, I think authentically for me, I feel most myself when I'm kind of being the very silly comedy people. Um,
Hmm.
so to me, that's kind of a very pure form of expression, because it's very instant and visible, um,
Yeah.
and that sort of comes through with the art. And I think with the the science side of things, that's kind of taken a little while to catch up, because I think you see what a science presenter is, and you go, oh yes, well, hello, welcome to science time, and I'm going to be very serious now and tell you all the details. Whereas, in fact, scientists get stuff. Well, they try not to get stuff wrong all the time, but what I mean is that people who present sciencey things are also humans and make mistakes, and
Yeah.
kind of not worrying too much about, there's an inevitable person who's sat in the background going, oh, well, actually, I think you'll find it's like this. Because they're going to be there no matter how much work you put in.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's definitely something we get a lot of. Oxford comedy shows are like the most accurate heckles you'll ever experience. Like you
Oh,
hear
yeah?
people.
What have you had?
Well, because I claim to know nothing about anything, thankfully I don't get as many of them. But we obviously at Jericho do like quite a few academic type shows, or sometimes like some of the topics that are covered in our comedy shows are quite academic. And obviously, Oxford being a pretty academic place as well, we get some of those people in. I think the most Oxford heckle I ever heard was when wonderful Alex Farrow of Jericho Comedy was doing he had something on a Gulf oil crisis, and I'm going to get the year wrong, but I think he was like, "Oh, the 1977 Gulf oil crisis," and someone at the back of the room put up their hand and said, it was 1976." And it was just like, yeah, that didn't add to the joke, but by God, you loved being right, didn't you? It was really incredible. I really enjoy that. I actually think the comedians who get those super accurate heckles really love them, even if it totally derails the joke. It kind of creates a whole other joke in itself, which is very fun.
Yeah, it's like you felt the need to disrupt this whole set.
Yeah, it's like an
Just
itch
to
at the
get the
back of their
year right.
brain. It's like, I won't be able to laugh at this until they know they're wrong. It's really quite incredible. You mentioned your art as well, Jose. I mean, I very soon I must and absolutely want to talk to you about your dream dinner party, but I can't not talk to you about your brilliant artwork. It's so fun and funny and colorful, and I love it. I really love your artwork. That seems as well like a very good outlet for being funny and creative and kind of bringing together your some kind of different areas of your personality. How long have you been kind of creating artwork like this and putting it out there?
Well, as old people say, I came out of the womb with a pencil. No, no, that would be very dangerous. I mean, I was one of these kids that, well, I did have a Game Boy, but then also my mum would always pack a pad of paper and a pencil in a handbag
Yeah.
everywhere we went. So I did used to draw a lot. And then I kind of, once I got to uni, it just sort of dropped off the radar for a bit. And it wasn't until like a couple of years ago, one of my PhD friends draws quite a lot, and I was like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, maybe I'll do that again. And it was kind of crippling to see how far I had regressed from my skills at 17 were amazing. So yeah, ever since then, I sort of started off doing they were very surreal, very quick line drawings that were kind of funny, kind of just a bit odd,
Hmm.
for a little bit, and then sort of over time they've evolved to be more complicated as I've wanted sort of more of a challenge, and they've become more expressive and more color has emerged, and I've been getting different ideas to do things, so it's been kind of interesting seeing how that has evolved.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, you take commissions as well. Like you are a kind of an artist available for hire, obviously, if anyone's listening. But do you kind of
Hello, I just docked my beret there.
do you find that like how different an experience is it drawing something or creating something to someone else's brief as opposed to you having an idea for something that you want to create?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely more thought goes into it. because it's quite interesting. So at the moment, I post little videos that show you how I drew things. Whenever I've done them digitally, you can kind of see exactly like every stroke I've done, and very rarely is there any sort of sketching. I just kind of go into it and it's created and then it's there. Whereas, yeah, if it's something for podcast artwork or a logo or whatever else it is, there's a lot more planning and thought that has to go into it. So it's quite interesting going through the sort of devising process of being like, oh, does that like convey the idea that we're going for well enough? And kind of trying to think of different ways to convey the same thing and to make sure that it does come out clearly and is nice to look at as well. So yeah, it's a slightly more intellectual exercise, as with the rest of my stuff is more instantaneous.
Yeah. Oh well, whatever you're doing, keep it up, because I love your artwork so much. It's so fun and bright and funny and colorful. Yeah, really, really love it. Josie, obviously there's so much about your creativity. I could sit here all evening and ask you various questions about your singing and your performing and your podcasting and everything. But I have to ask you now about your dream dinner party, which is why we're here. Before we kind of learn all the details about the where and the what's on the menu and who's coming along, just as a general kind of question on a Dr. Josie Peters dinner party, what kind of an affair are they? I mean, are they silly, boozy affairs, or are they kind of fueled by stimulating conversation? What's the kind of key ingredient of a dinner party with you?
I like to think it's kind of a mix of all of those things.
Yeah.
Back in the day when we could have all our friends around, I love being a hostess. So I do usually do quite a few dinner parties.
Oh yeah.
And the main thing for me is just making sure that everyone is relaxed and happy, because then I think you get a bit of that silliness comes naturally. And then also there kind of hits a point, doesn't there, when you've had dessert, you might have like a coffee or a tea or something, and then all of a sudden everyone gets very serious and starts talking about, well, I don't know, maybe this is just my friends. But you'll get to that sort of stage of wine or whatever it is where you're like, now look, you have incredible ideas and we need to get you out there and we need to think of these, or like, look, women in comedy, we've got to do something about it, or whatever it is. There's
a kind of setting the world to rights.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we should be talking more about this black hole that's going to eat us, but I don't know, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe ignorance is truly bliss.
Would you like some cheese? I mean, that's, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Josie, you've put together this amazing dream dinner party, and we need to know, if you could do this, if you could gather these people together anywhere in the world, or indeed beyond, where would you be choosing to gather all these people together?
Oh, so I had a lot of fun thinking about this. I initially thought, like, oh, what about like a jungle, in the midst of a beautiful jungle at nighttime with loads of fairy lights. And then I thought, but Boomanek, I don't like the weather, and and also
it's such a big thing to dislike, Josie.
I mean, well, I like some weather, but jungle weather is like really humid and hot. Everyone would be a bit uncomfortable, a bit sweaty, and there'd probably be like a really dangerous spider or a snake or something that would just like ruin the whole evening.
Yes, and that suddenly stops being a dream dinner party, then, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So I was kind of trying to think of like, right, so if I had to actually implement this, maybe I would just like take over the Rainforest Cafe, or
I love that.
Because the last time I went, I was 10, and it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. It was just like, we went and sat down in this corner, and they had all the jungle sound effects, and then this gorilla started like making noises behind us, and it was just, oh, it was great. Amazing. I think the only thing I would change would be like, before the dinner party happened, I would take the rest of the building off, because I would like the night sky.
Oh yeah.
but then I would also stick googly eyes on all the animals and also pre-record like different things for them to say.
Almost turning it into a kind of cartoon rainforest, but a real life one. That is amazing. That is
I'd love
definitely
it.
a location for a dinner party and an idea that we've not had in the series yet. Sticking googly eyes on animals in the rainforest. Amazing stuff. Well, we know where we'd be. We know there'd be googly eyes aplenty. So what we need now are some guests. Your first guest is an actor who, despite having no formal acting training, won a national writing contest and used the winnings to get an entry into the Spotlight directory. She's gone on to earn 2 Oscar nominations, 6 BAFTA nominations, winning once, 8 Golden Globe nominations, 5 Emmy nominations, winning once. You're inviting Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes, I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what she wears.
Oh, is that a big attraction to having her along? Because she is famously stylish.
Yeah, I think that, you know, so many things about her. Like, she is, you know, as you say, she's stylish. Like, I like her different way of dressing. I think she's very interesting like that, and just I think one of the most watchable people on screen.
Yeah.
Like, you could just anything that she's in, just totally captivating.
What do you think that is? Like, what aspect of her performance do you think sets her apart?
I think I saw her. There was a really fascinating film that she did called it was about, you know, the chef Nigel Slater.
Oh yeah.
There's like this film about his childhood, and Helena Bonham Carter plays his stepmom in it.
Wow.
And God, wow, yeah, she is quite a scary character in that. And I must have watched that when I was probably, I don't know, late teens or something, and just remember thinking just how enigmatic and how, you know, what an incredible performer she was to watch.
Yeah.
And so then you know, seeing her come up in the Harry Potter films as well, being
Of course
that sort of age as well, being like, wow, she's so great, look at her.
Yeah.
And
She was almost too good, kind of, as Bellatrix, because we're not really supposed to like or root for Bellatrix. But she was so
definitely.
brilliant that you're kind of like, yeah, go on, kill them all. She was infuriatingly likable as Bellatrix, definitely. She I was doing a little bit of reading about her today. She's really, really interesting actor. Like I said in the intro, she kind of has no formal acting training. I say that like it kind of matters, because so many brilliant people don't have formal training in the area that they work in. But her mother is a psychotherapist, and apparently Helena Bonham Carter pays her mother to read all of her scripts and like deliver opinions on the character's kind of psychological motivations. So
Oh
that
wow.
sort of fire that you mentioned, and like that kind of thing you detect in her characters, that is in large part born out of the fact that essentially her characters have already had a session with a psychotherapist, and so she knows so much about their kind of motivations and everything. It's really, really interesting hearing her talk. There's a great clip of her on Stephen Colbert's show talking about Princess Margaret in The Crown, and she really speaks about her like she sat in on a therapy session and knows a lot about her. It's quite amazing.
Because didn't she as well talk to a medium about Princess Anne as well? Not Anne, sorry, Margaret.
Oh my god, I don't know. It sounds like the kind of mad thing she would do. Yeah.
I think she did summon her. I don't know.
Actually,
You know,
Princess Margaret spent a delightful
jokey
day on set at the Crown. Yeah.
You know, I think she did it sort of out of fun. If I remember the interview rightly, it was like sort of with her and Olivia Colman.
Okay, yeah.
But you know, it's still just like something to do nonetheless, and seeing that I think Margaret
Wow.
approved and
That's
thought it
amazing.
was good.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
I think it's just that thing about her that like you can see that she's enjoying what she's doing so much.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it such a, you know, that's what makes her performances really light up.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Some actors I think you mentioned that. That's so true, because some actors really do seem like it's just a job, like, and they seem tired by their acting sometimes. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know, but yeah, she really seems to have fun with everything she's doing. That's a really good point. What do you think she'd be like as a dinner party guest? She has so much fun as an actor. Do you think she would have fun at a dinner party?
I think so. I imagine she would have a lot of stories and interesting things to talk about for sure.
Oh yeah.
And would definitely be good at telling those.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Is that what you would kind of be hoping from her? Like, if you've got her there, would you be asking her for sort of stories from the set, or yeah, what would you be hoping from her? Like,
I mean, ultimately, as I say, I do just want everyone to just have a good time. Like, if she's not in the mood to tell a story and she just kind of wants to sit back and enjoy the food, that's fine. Um, but I would love to, yeah, talk to her about some of her roles and yeah, find out more about this psychiatry aspect to it and sort of how she approaches it and
yeah.
um, goes through everything. And I always think it's interesting knowing the characters that people have enjoyed playing themselves. Like,
Oh yeah.
whereas there might be something that people have enjoyed watching more, but is that necessarily the thing that actually the actor enjoyed portraying as
That's
much?
interesting. Yeah.
Um,
So you'd want to know kind of a bit more about what she's really enjoyed doing. That's very cool. I think that would be a fascinating conversation. Well, Helena Bonham Carter is a great start to your dinner party, a superb first guest. Your next guest is a comedian, writer, artist, and presenter who rose to fame with the hit comedy The Mighty Boosh. As an artist, he's had work exhibited in places like the Royal Albert Hall, and he's one of the co presenters of the Great British Bake Off. You're inviting the quite unique Noel Fielding to your dinner party.
Yay! Oh my gosh, I think I would actually faint if I ever saw Noel Fielding in the flesh.
He is a little bit like Helena Bonham Carter in that he is known for his style. Like, he was named in GQ's 50 Best Dressed Men list. But other than style, what do you think he would be bringing to an evening?
Oh, just fun and good times. Well, I kind of I was thinking about this lately. I was watching Bake Off with my boyfriend, and obviously watching him and Matt Lucas interacting with the contestants.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, is it normal that for me, like my reaction when I watch them is like, finally there's someone relatable on TV. Um,
Why? So you see a lot of yourself in Noel Fielding.
Oh yeah, massively. Well, I mean, I think I was watching the Mighty Boosh in my mid late teens, so
Yeah.
that kind of formed a lot of my helped. Well, yeah, formed some of my comedy enjoyment and things like that.
Ah.
Um, but yeah, just the sort of like the playfulness and the kind of the funny voices and just his way of kind of joking around. I kind of relate to a lot. Um,
That's really
and
interesting.
I know
So,
he would definitely enjoy the venue because he likes the jungle as well.
oh, of course. Like, he has cited people like Salvador Dali, Freddie Mercury, and Spike Milligan, who coincidentally have all been featured as fantasy guests on this series. But he's
Yeah.
kind of cited all those people as kind of major influences, and it sounds like he's been a bit of an influence on you in your kind of comedy or your creativity. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes if I'm sort of searching for a bit of creative nourishment or whatever, I have this Mighty Boosh book from 10 years ago or whatever it is,
Mm.
and it's just like really fascinating, like just looking at all the pictures and the different characters and fun things that they come up with. And it's just I think what they did was just so really playful and fun and colorful, and um, those are all the kind of the things that I really enjoy, so I think that's why I tapped into it a lot.
Yeah. Well,
um,
what I mean, if you've gotten there at your dinner party and you can pick his brain about anything, like, What do you want to talk to him about? What do you want to hear him speak about?
I think definitely hearing about sort of those early Boosh days of him and Julian getting together and
Mm-hmm.
the whole kind of process behind like developing that and you know where how you even start something like that because it's quite an unusual show. Like there's clips
Yeah.
of like really early Boosh on stage in
Mm-hmm.
like old pubs and stuff, and it's like they were wearing like all their outfits and things to like gigs where like everyone else was doing like stand up, right? And then
Yeah.
they turn up and they're like wearing parkas and like being in the Arctic and um,
God, I
you
would
know just
not
this.
like to have followed that on stage.
Yeah.
It's
um,
they're certainly, I mean, they're so surreal and so kind of funny and weird, but he does balance that with like being super accessible as well. Like that's obviously why he works on something like Bake Off so well. Like, is there a specific aspect of his kind of work or personality or creativity that you're kind of particularly drawn to? Is there one like Noel Fielding quality that you prize above all others?
I think something that I really value that's not even a comedy thing is just sort of kindness. Like he
Hmm.
seems like such a nice person to all the contestants on Bake Off or you know whoever else
Yeah.
it is. I think that is a really good trait to keep with you, especially if you've been very successful and things like that. It's definitely a good quality, and I think it's yeah.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. That's really cool. That's an excellent answer. What do you think? Like, do you think he would kind of be the life and soul of this dinner party? Like, what kind of behavior would you expect from Noel Fielding here?
I feel like he and Helena would have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can just imagine them two like both sat at the same sort of corner of the dinner table. Um,
They definitely strike me as two people that if they sat beside each other at school and I were the teacher, I would have to separate them.
yeah.
Like, they're both mischievous. That's true.
Be like, oh, you with the eyeliner, oh, you with the other eyeliner.
No, you stylish one. No, the other stylish one.
Yeah,
Oh my God, have we ever seen them in the same room at the same time? Have we just
it's never,
come
never
on
know.
to a theory? I'm putting it out there. Noel Fielding, Helena Bonham Carter might be the same person.
Could well be
Just
shape
saying.
shifting person.
That definitely would be the kind of weird skit. Like, he would come out and say, "Oh, I was only joking. I was Helena Bonham Carter the whole time." I'd be like, "Ah, man, no, got us again." Is he some? Have you ever had the chance to see him live?
Yeah. Back in I don't know, whenever it was, whenever they were doing the tour of season 3 of The Mighty Boosh, they had him and Julian did a massive arena tour, and I went to Liverpool with my mum, who was quite stressed, and and some of my friends. This Liverpool Echo Arena was very difficult to find the entrance to, but we got there. Yeah, and it was amazing. There was just like this giant eel and like an enormous like Howard. The character of Howard like came in on a dinghy, and the character of Vince like came in on this enormous sparkly cruise ship, and it's a great way to enter the stage and to start a show.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, that was the one and only time. But it was great. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Oh, that is very cool. Well, he is definitely a superb addition to any dinner party. He is going to bring an element of fun and fabulousness to proceedings. And your third guest, this person's amazing. Your third guest is an animator, illustrator, and writer who, as a child, wrote in a school assignment, "I want to be famous for drawing horses someday." And then that happened when she designed the Netflix animated comedy BoJack Horseman. She also created Tuca and Bertie. You're inviting Lisa Hannawalt.
Yes.
She is so damn cool. I really loved reading about her today. Like, I'd seen BoJack Horseman. I'm aware of Tuca and Bertie, but I didn't really know a lot about her. When did you kind of become a fan of hers?
well, for me, it was through Tuca and Bertie, because I'd heard a lot of people really enjoyed BoJack Horseman, but they were like, "Oh, but it's a bit dark and sad," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm a very sensitive soul. I will stay away." Um, but then I was with my housemate, and we put Netflix on, and these colourful birds were on the screen being advertised to us, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this looks amazing! Let's watch this." Wow, you have to watch it. The the first episode it's again, it's bright, it's colourful, kind of surreal. There's some like weird stuff that happens, and there's like a lot of great music in it as well, and it's punchy and it's funny, and but it's also really smart and authentic, and they touch on like some really amazing topics that should be spoken about. And so I watched all of that. Really pleased to hear that Adult Swim are taking it for a second series.
Yes. Yeah, it's her work is absolutely fascinating. Like, on some level, it is really simple and silly. Like, it's bright, it's colorful, and it's about two sort of kind of human type birds who live together, and that's silly. But it's also like super deep as well. Like Amanda Hess, a journalist for New York Times, wrote, "The animalism of Hannah Walt's work helps reveal parts of women we rarely see on screen, the strangest, horniest, hungriest parts." Like, a lot of her work seems to be about kind of human nature and like how animal like humans are, or how human animals can be. uh, it dismisses ideas that femininity can be kind of flawed and gross in the same way that masculinity can be, and a lot of it is about like mental health and anxiety. She touches on some big areas.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of being able to go into that is having the fun and the color and
Yeah,
the designs that she has, and making it sort of a fun, visually appealing world that you can then dip into these, as you say, more serious and deeper topics.
yeah, definitely. The You mentioned the bright colors there. Like, it definitely seems to me like, looking at your artwork, I see kind of some similar qualities. Like, it's bright, it's fun, super colorful, a lot of animals as well. Is she someone that when you're creating art, you are like consciously aware of that influence, or?
Maybe somewhere. I haven't tried like studying any of her artwork actually, but I
Oh,
do.
okay.
I've got one of her graphic novels called Coyote Dog Girl, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
great. And I guess you absorb stuff, and you don't necessarily know if there's definitely some part of you somewhere that's outputting some of the things that you've taken in.
Yeah. What is it about her kind of characters and her writing and her design that makes you kind of connect with her work so strongly?
I think it is, again, going down to that playfulness and fun, but then also, as you said, the sort of the authenticity and honesty of it, and um, in a way, it's kind of, with my sciencey background or whatever, trying to make that accessible. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of feel like with some of, what she's done on Tuca and Bertie is making difficult topics of other regions more accessible by, sort of presenting it in the way that she does. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really, it's nice to, it's a good idea to use your creative powers for good. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. it's it's really interesting as well. Like, she is involved obviously in animation, and there are a lot of um a lot of kind of preconceptions, I suppose, about animation. People think it's either like for children, or it's kind of for like, sometimes it often has like a bit of a man baby energy. Like, a
mhm.
lot of the characters in adult animation are male, or their male focused stories and that kind of thing. And Tuca and Bertie is one of the very few examples. I actually can't really think of many others that kind of aren't primarily about the kind of male experience or how men or male characters define a kind of female story. Like they are purely about kind of female relationships, female thoughts, female experiences. Um, and what's really interesting as well is that this is episode 13 of this podcast series. And I did 13 episodes of this on Radio Oxford as well. So in 26 episodes of this, yours is the first dinner party that has had more female guests than male guests.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, wow.
And it really interests me that you've chosen some guests this evening, certainly Lisa Hannawalt, very primarily amongst them, who do put that kind of importance on telling female stories. And is that a kind of area that you care a lot about? You've mentioned the need to get more women involved with comedy and more women involved with science. Was this a kind of conscious thing when you were choosing your guests, or was it an accident?
A little bit conscious, because I noticed that sort of some things I almost picked Hergé instead of Lisa Hannawalt, because I've always loved Tintin and all his adventures. But then I started thinking, would I actually want him at the party?
Oh yeah.
and then I was almost, because I was writing things down, I was noticing my own patterns more, and kind of Helena Bonham Carter almost became Ralph Fiennes, and I could have had Vic Reeves in there as well, and I was like, I should probably only have one comedian. But so a little bit conscious. But then when I settled on it, I was like, oh, actually no, she does resonate with me more strongly. And I think you're right, really, as well, about the different types of animation. Like, as you say, it was kind of refreshing to see Tuca and Bertie, because I think because people are almost afraid of people saying, oh, animation isn't that for children, they make very ugly characters. And you, as you say, a lot of those kind of more like man baby-esque type shows, like the characters are all kind of a bit hideous to look at, and like it's kind of, I feel like it's a retaliation to being like, well, it's drawings, but they don't look nice, so therefore it's cool. So,
men are obsessed with being cool. That is really interesting. I've not seen Tuca and Birdie, but having done a bit of reading today about it, it seems like kind of anxiety and the way that some of the characters' mental health seems kind of central to the story. Is that something that you would kind of be interested in talking to her about? Because Lisa Hannawalt is a very anxious person. She speaks a lot about her anxiety. Do you think that would be something that you would want to hear about? Or, yeah, like if you have her there, what do you kind of want to ask her about and talk to her about?
I think I definitely would speak to her about anxiety. I mean, I've suffered from it myself quite a lot, and I know that a lot of my comedy friends have also suffered from various mental health, whether it's anxiety or depression or something else. Like, a lot of people I know suffer from various different mental ailments. So it would be, interesting to hear about her experience and how she, I presume that, artwork must be kind of an outlet for some of that, and kind of expressing it, because, as you say, like talking about it in Tuca and Bertie in various episodes and things like that would be really interesting. And it would also be interesting to hear about her kind of experience in the animation industry, again, like just generally, but then also as a woman, because I know it's also difficult for women to get into the animation industry as well. So that, the fact that she's done so incredibly, like, sort of speaks even more about what she does, because it's difficult for her to have got there in the first place. So yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to hear about her journey for that.
Yeah. Oh, she's just amazing. Like I end up like reading so many kind of articles about her today and like watching. I'll send you a link later. In fact, I'll put the link in the episode description. That's the thing I'm supposed to do on a podcast. I will put the link in the episode description. There's a great video where she talks about her work and her attitude to her work. And yeah, she speaks so brilliantly on it, and she has loads of really funny kind of sketches and illustrations up on the screen behind her. And yeah, it's a really great video. I think if you like Lisa Hannell, as you clearly do, I think you'll enjoy this video. So I shall send you the link, Josie, but I shall also put it in the episode description so that the listener can enjoy it too, because that's only fair. Uh, your next guest, Josie, is such a brilliant choice. It was a name that when I saw it, it literally made me laugh out loud because it was just so unexpected. This person is a 32-year-old from Newcastle under Lyme. He's 6'3" tall and weighs 186 kilos. And in 2017, he won the World's Strongest Man competition. You're inviting the Beast, Eddie Hall.
Yeah, Eddie Hall.
Josie, what?
Oh my gosh. You don't
Where
understand.
does this one come from?
World's Strongest Man is a very big thing in my family.
Wow.
When Christmas and New Year rolls around, all of the Peters come together and we sit and we cheer them on. But Eddie Hall is extra special because he's from near where I come from. Well, where I half come from.
Okay.
So not only is he from England, UK, he's also, as you say, from Newcastle under Lyme, pretty close to Stoke-on-Trent. That's my neck of the woods. I used to work at a cinema in Newcastle under Lyme for about a year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He is obviously super impressive. Like, he's a very, very big, strong man who can lift lots of heavy things. But what do you think that would translate as, like, as a dinner party guest? How do you think he would fit in with your other guests? And, like, what do you think he'd be like at the dinner party table?
Well, to be honest, I would kind of hope that he would lift the table up at some point, or some of the guests. Not in like a performance way, but just to be like, Eddie, come on, mate, we know you can, would you? Because this would be hilarious.
I can definitely see Noel Fielding kind of encouraging that kind of behaviour. Like, can you lift this? Can you lift this?
So I think that would be great. I also think he really fascinating. So he won World's Strongest Man.
Yeah.
And then he was like, right, well, I've done it now. See ya. Like,
he retired, didn't he?
Yeah, he I think it was his grandma was dying or something like that, and he was saying to her, like, I'll win World's Strongest Man for you, Gran. And it's just so unusual compared to sort of every other competitor. Zadrina Savickas has got, like, I don't know what, 4 strongman titles, and like other people will try and come back year on year to become World's Strongest Man again. So it's really rare to have someone who goes, actually, you know what, I've won it. I've been World's Strongest Man, and now I'm going to go back to my family and enjoy my life without all this crazy amounts of training. So I think that makes him, does sort of set him apart from some of the other strongmen as having this really interesting attitude towards it.
Do you think that's, like, would you want to ask him more about that? Like, kind of about the personality that sort of allowed him to walk away from it? Because that sounds like it would be very, very interesting to hear about from him.
Yeah, definitely. I think, hearing about his journey, how he even got into it in the first place, and I just can't even imagine what it's like to just pull a truck,
Yeah, it's so mad. But do you think, other than the obvious that you both love World's Strongest Man, like, do you see any other kind of areas of kind of common ground or shared interests with him, do you think?
Well, I think people from sort of near Stoke have a pretty good sense of humour.
Oh yeah.
So you know what? I think he would be a pretty good laugh at the table. I think it would be a fun presence to be around. Yeah, I could ask him if he'd ever been to View Cinema. Be like, oh well, I've worked there. We could talk about the shopping centre. You know what else? Pottery.
Do you think he's a good potterer?
Oh, I don't know. Who knows?
I would imagine that delicate things like pottery might not be feasible with his big frame. Maybe I'm judging him unfairly. Maybe that would be a good outlet for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Often people like that have quite a strong masculine thing that they do. Often have like a small, delicate thing that they do as well, don't they?
Oh, I
Like,
really want to know what his is.
yeah, I wonder if it's
He's
like
such a hulking man. Like, it's very difficult to imagine him baking or
like crochet or something.
yeah, playing the cello. Like, I struggle to see him being soft, but maybe I am judging him unfairly.
Yeah, I would
probably
want to find out more of the facets of Eddie Hall. I bet he's a fascinating person.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he certainly was unexpected. He's such a great choice, totally different, and yeah, just keeps things at the cafe very, very interesting that night. Eddie being there. Your final guest is a screenwriter, film director, and she's the chief creative officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios. She was the first ever woman to direct a Walt Disney Animation Studios feature film and the first female director of a film to earn over $1 billion at the box office. That film, of course, was Frozen, and your final guest is Jennifer Lee.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're a Frozen fan?
Oh, let it go. How forced was that?
It was a direct competition. Which one of us got to use that joke?
Yeah,
and you beat me to it.
There's got to be another one. I need to quickly scramble down all the other song names and be like, oh, Connor, I'm just lost in the words. That's me.
She's obviously an amazing writer and director. Why, of all the people in the world that you could invite to your dinner party, does Jennifer Lee get an invite?
Well, so I recently watched. There's a documentary on Disney Plus about Frozen 2. It's like an 8-part series or something.
Okay.
And having such a big creative role, obviously she features very heavily, and it was just so fascinating seeing all of the different aspects of her job and what she does. And it seems like a great job. You get to see all the different aspects of the film and creatively steer it and be like, oh, this is a good idea, and see what everyone is working on, whether it's the Foley artist or the actors or the the people writing the songs, and just sort of being able to direct that entire vision just seemed like such a fascinating thing, and like she must have such a an interesting mind to be able to hold all these stories and these visions together and know where they want to go.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you've touched on a couple of things there, obviously, like her incredible creativity, but also like the kind of the business sort of side of it. Like, it's amazing that she is in the position she's in. Obviously, the first woman ever to lead Disney. Also, just amazing, like her journey to get there. Like, she was originally contracted for 8 weeks of writing on Wreck-It Ralph, and like those 8 weeks kind of came and went, and she was still there. And only like a few years later, she's got the top job at Disney. Like, she's an amazing, amazing person. Like, what qualities do you think she'd be bringing to your dinner party?
I think she would have interesting discussion points. I think she'd be quite insightful. I think because of the kind of things that she does, you have to be really paying attention to things and to kind of think about them in different ways. So yeah, I think she would be very good at at talking to other people as well as telling her own stories. Yeah, and just the wealth of experience and her whole story and everything else. Yeah, and she also, as I say, all these people seem like nice, fun people. Obviously, this is a very vague and intangible thing to discuss, but they just all seem like great people from like all of the, things that you see about them, and they're, just yeah,
I
kind
think
of
that's an excellent and important quality for them to be like seem like good people.
yeah, and they kind of got a sort of an intellectual side to things, but also this creative side, and sort of marrying those two together.
Yeah, totally. She's someone who, like, I definitely, when I was reading about all your guests, I kind of saw some parallels between her and Lisa Hannawalt. Like, obviously, as women in animation, but more so the kind of, like, the female characters and stories that they bring to the fore. Like, obviously, Frozen, the, in almost every Disney animation, the the female characters are kind of dominated by the storyline in relation to a handsome prince or a man who'll save them or whatever it is. But Frozen has given like young girls and young boys as well like a totally different and altogether more positive view of what femininity can be, and that's something that Lisa Hannibal does as well through her work. Um, and obviously you in comedy, with the Oxford Imps and with the improv you do with Jericho Comedy and everything, your relationships with other female improvisers are super important. But you've also talked about how comedy needs to do more to kind of give women a voice. So do you think that would be something that they that kind of Lisa and Jennifer would have an interesting insight on?
Definitely, yeah, and definitely coming at from those sort of slightly different angles as well, because they are both animation, but one is, as you say, like feature films, and then the other is more
Mm.
Netflix and TV, and sort of the process of even getting there. Because I mean, it's crazy, right? Like more than half of cinema goers were women,
Yeah.
and to not be featuring uh, those relationships that are so important and those characters and stories.
Yeah.
It's mad that it's only just come about, and it's great to have something. I think as a when you are younger and when you're exposed to films that do have like, oh well, the love interest is obviously the most important thing. It's so great to
Yeah.
finally have something else where you can go like, oh, but no, your sister is really important in your friendships, and it's not saying that you can't also have romantic relationships and stuff like that, but just remembering that those other parts of your life are important, because I think we
Yeah.
both men and women, you've always had like friends who they get a boyfriend or a girlfriend and then they kind of drop off the radar a bit,
Hmm.
when that happens sometimes. So it's good to have those other
Yeah.
relationships like reinforced.
Yeah, definitely. She's absolutely amazing. Really, really, really fascinating person. Again, I really, really enjoyed reading about her. I also had a lot of fun trying to picture Eddie Hall singing "Let It Go" with her.
Yeah. That would definitely be when the karaoke machine comes out at the when it's sort of got a robot parrot on it, and it's you know
Oh man, I really need to see this now. I can't
uh,
remember which guest suggested this. I think it was Laura Lex suggested that there should be like an illustration of all these dinner parties done. And I kind of feel like, I mean, you should definitely illustrate your dream dinner party. All these people, Eddie on the karaoke machine with Jennifer, Noel and Helena in the corner causing mischief. This would be a great image to see.
oh, I'd love it. It would be amazing.
You've put together like such a brilliant group of people, obviously. Helena Bonham Carter, Noel Fielding, Lisa Hannawalt, Eddie Hall, Jennifer Lee. One thing I love to ask kind of all the guests who do the show is like, do you think there is a kind of common thread or a common quality that you see in each of those people? Like, you've mentioned kindness a few times, you've mentioned fun. Is that the thing that you kind of could say all of my guests are, or I chose them because of X quality? Like, what is it you think that kind of ties them together?
I think, yeah, partly the kindness aspect, and also like there's kind of an interesting little nugget of truth that kind of runs through them all. Like in Frozen 2, there was this storyline where, spoiler alert, one of the sisters thought the other sister had died, and luckily she hadn't actually died in the end. But, not being afraid to go into those topics, and there's kind of like a slightly darker but very truthful side about Helena Bonham Carter's characters, and then Eddie, being fine to sort of fulfill his destiny of being strong man once, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, right? Is that a
Yeah, I think
convoluted?
that's I think that's really, really interesting. No, 100%. I also think that you've put together a really interesting group. Like, you would get such a fascinating conversation on gender with these people. Like, obviously, Noel Fielding plays with gender in his kind of clothing and makeup and stuff. And, Lisa Hannawalt, Jennifer Lee look at gender in such an interesting way. Eddie Hall is sort of like the kind of prototype alpha male. I think,
Literally the strongest man.
exactly, yeah. Like, what's the number one male quality? Strength. Who's the strongest? Him. So he is like the alpha male. But yeah, I think you would have a really fascinating chat on gender. I would certainly love to sit down and kind of have a discussion with like Eddie Hall, Noel Fielding, Lisa Hannawalt on kind of what it is to be a man or a woman, or if that even matters, that kind of label. I think that would be very interesting. That was something that occurred to me anyway. Such a great group of guests, Josie. Really, really brilliant. The last thing we need to know now is what you would cook for these people. So first of all, you say that you enjoy a good dinner party. Do you enjoy the cooking side of it, or is that not your favorite part?
I do enjoy cooking. I like providing people with a tasty meal, but I, I always try and make sure that it's quite relaxed to like put my guests at ease as well, as well as making sure that I can also be present and enjoy the evening as well, instead of being a chef. So,
well, what would these lucky 5 people be getting from your kitchen?
Well, when they come through the door, they'd get a bottle of, maybe they would get a bottle. It's a fantasy dinner party. Why not? A whole bottle of champagne with a straw.
That is setting a tone. That is start as you mean to go on in an evening.
Yeah.
Here's your bottle. Bendy straws over here.
Exactly. And if you don't want to drink it, that's fine. We've got Schlur. It's all good. So we'd start off with that. There would be quite an enormous array of crisps.
Oh, yes.
Hummus, olives, a bit of cheese, maybe. Sort of fun little tidbits to start off with. Oh, and I've written here in capital letters, figs.
Why do figs get capital letters?
Oh,
how important are figs to you?
They're just one of those things that you kind of forget how delicious they are until you eat them again, and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about figs.
I feel that needs to be like a slogan on a t-shirt. I forgot about figs.
Quick, throw one in the oven with a bit of goat's cheese and some honey. Oh,
amazing. So this is all kind of, these are all the treats before the main course. Your guests really are getting spoiled.
Oh yeah, and there'd be some like maybe samba music or talking heads playing. Like there'd be a bit of, actually, you know what, this is fantasy, isn't it? I'd have a steel drum band.
Oh, yes, that is brilliant.
I love steel drums so much. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then they'd get to relax and have their, a chit chat and whatever. So yeah, diverging from the menu. For a starter, I'd then have for any vegetarians or vegans, I would do some sort of veggie or vegan arancini balls. And then for any meat eaters, I would have parma ham and melon, because I just love how it's like literally like it's just ham and melon, right?
Yeah.
But it's also like one of the bougiest starters you can have.
It really is.
You feel like you're being treated, and you kind of just don't care that the host has literally like just opened a pack of parma ham.
That's such a good reason to have it. And you're right, it's so classy, but they're just emptying ham onto a plate.
Yeah, slicing up a bit of melon, and there you go. Yeah, and you can even prepare it ahead of time. You can just do it in the morning, stick it in the fridge, and then hand it out later. So
yeah, I love that.
Nice
Excellent.
one.
All right.
Main, or I was going to go for like a massive chili con carne, because I love the freshness of the lime and the coriander.
Ooh,
but then the more I think about it, like is a massive bolognese even better? So maybe I just make both. No, chili. I'll go for chili. I've decided.
Excellent choice.
With guacamole aplenty and lime and coriander and all the good stuff.
Oh, wonderful.
And then to finish, a giant tiramisu, where everyone just kind of gets a spoon, and then there's also like profiteroles on top. Because I couldn't decide, so they get
That's brilliant. 2 desserts in one.
Yeah, why not just use profiteroles as decoration? I think that can.
Oh my god, that is fantastic. Profiteroles as a garnish is now my new favorite thing.
Hello, what would you like on your salad? You got any profiteroles?
Actually, I'm watching my carbs. Can I skip the croutons and just have some profiteroles instead? Oh, that is amazing. What a dinner party you've put together.
I can't wait. When are they getting here?
This is the guilt I'm always left with. Like, we picture the best, like literally people's dream night. And then at the end, it's like, well, I'm glad you thought of that. Bye. I really feel like I should be saying, like, open your front door now and Eddie will be there.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? He would like break all my chairs. I think he would be.
That's true. One thing at the Rainforest Cafe, they would have to have some damn strong chairs for Eddie.
Yeah. Oh, it would be so nice to see them all. Well, maybe, who knows, one day, maybe I'll be some big successful thing, and
this
the
is
party
the thing.
will come.
You've chosen guests who are all still alive. So this isn't beyond you. Like, some people choose like guests who, even if I were very resourceful and could invite all these people, they're too dead to go to a dinner party now. But all of these people...
That's my excuse.
You never know. You might be able to do this. Let's start a petition. Even if we can get 2 of them there, that would be quite something.
Oh, yeah. That would be... I think it would have to be the right 2, though. I can't imagine like Eddie Hall and Jennifer Lee particularly having a good time. Just the 2 of them, like... You need the whole menagerie.
That's true.
Is that the right word? That's not a rude word, is it? Menagerie? What is that?
No, although I can see how you questioned whether it's true. Menagerie, I think that's like it's a word to do with like a variety of animals, isn't it?
Okay,
Menagerie.
Yeah. All right.
Let me just... This is not something I often do on the podcast, but I am going to Google menagerie. Menagerie, a collection of wild animals kept in captivity for exhibition. Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
That is... Look, we're at the Rainforest Cafe. Who says we can't have people, charging tickets outside?
That's brilliant. You could cover at least the cost of your food and drink by selling tickets.
Yeah.
That's genius.
What an event.
Josie, that is so great. Thank you so much for sharing your dream dinner party. If any of our listeners want to check out all of your wonderful work in science and comedy, your wonderful art, where's the best place for us to see what you're getting up to?
Well, I have decided to have multiple Instagrams because I have. So if you like science, it's at Josie Peters. If you like art, it's, I'm going to say this very slowly, art, yeah, art. And if you want to see a bit of Jardin, and any online shows I'm guesting on, go to Josie Peters Comedy, all on Instagram, because that's the funnest place to be right now, I think.
Wonderful. Well, we will add links to all of those accounts into the episode description, as well as a link to your wonderful website. And Josie, it's been such a pleasure. I really hope to see you again at Wonderful Jericho Comedy Show very soon.
Me too. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Josie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Bye.
Well, there we go. That was Josie's jungle-themed dream dinner party. I really loved that. You got to check out Josie's work online. She's so amazing. We have added links into the episode description for all of her multitude of different accounts that she mentioned, and also for her wonderful website. So you can click on those links and see for yourself why I'm such a big fan of Josie's. I just adore having these conversations. I'm having the best time making this series, and I'm so grateful to everyone who's given up their time to talk to me for the series, but also to everybody who's been in touch to say how much they're loving it. I'd really love for us to be able to reach a bigger audience, so if you have listened and enjoyed any of these episodes, please do rate and subscribe and share and tweet about and all that stuff that you can do. The bigger audience we can reach, the more fun we'll have making the series. The Dinner Party is a Jericho Comedy production. You can follow Jericho Comedy on all the social medias or visit www.jerichocomedy.com for more information on all of our podcasting and live comedy events and everything we do. We're really great. You can also visit www.conmcreynolds.com and have a look and listen to some of my other radio, podcast, writing, and comedy work. I'll be back with another guest next week chatting all about their dream dinner party. But until then, thank you so much for listening and bye-bye.